going on, guys? This is a spiritual experience. In this video, I'm going to warn you that probably going to be controversial. It's might you silly cat. It might push your buttons because I'm going to try and I might not even release this video, but we'll see what happens. But I'm going to try and work through some problems, not personal problems, but like political problems, and explain that there really isn't a problem with necessarily, like, a lot of the problems that I'm seeing, a lot of the problems areas that I'm seeing aren't really problems at all, but just a lack of understanding when it comes to politics and other stuff. And I'm still working this stuff out, so it's going to be very rambly. Just a warning, because I may publish this. So this is a warning. It's going to be extremely fucking rambly, because let me unplug this one second. Because what I find is that when you're, a lot of times when you're on one side of the political debate, well, not a lot of times, but like if you're like deeply enmeshed, like I was at one point, I wasn't really like a big fan of certain politics, and not necessarily certain politics, but the way that politics was played by certain people, like the political correctness and stuff like that. I'm still not a big fan of it, but like I said, this video is going to be rambling because I'm trying to work through why this stuff kind of happens. And I'm going to try and explain that the differences between the two sides of the so-called culture war, or the so-called left and right, aren't really that different. The only differences are conceptual, sorry, and that those conceptions aren't really they're not fully, like, the best way I'm going to explain it is they're not fully, like, integrated into what reality is. Although some of the sides have it a little bit better than others when it comes to that. And this is not me picking on a certain party or side or anything like this. This is me trying to explain that sometimes things that seem bad on the other side may actually be, if not good, then maybe they have some valid points. A lot of this stuff kind of comes from like the SJW, anti-SJW side of things, kind of. Like, I'm not going to go extremely into that because like, a lot of it is minutiae. That's the problem that I'm seeing. That a lot of people get focused on the minutiae and not the bigger picture politics. Is what I'm going to call it. The bigger picture politics. And don't get me wrong, I understand part of the minutiae and why it's important to focus on that to some extent, but not at all, not to such an extent that it is by most politicians and people who are concentrated in this area of politics. And explain some problems with social media. Not necessarily YouTube, but like Twitter and Facebook and all these other platforms are hyping this up. Not necessarily purposefully. This mostly has to do with censoring and their algorithms. And actually, there was a study found that people who use Twitter are and this is not an insult. This is not meant to be an insult to anybody, but it has found that people who use Twitter, who are on Twitter, at their intelligence levels, become lowered, which is very strange and very scary. And it's not really brought up. It was only brought up for like one person, who, which I really like him because he's really nuanced and he tries to bring up all these points, and he's involved in it. Like the problem, and he sees this too, to some extent. But the problem is that the minutiae it gets in the way of common ground thinking, not just common ground thinking, but bigger picture thinking, and finding common ground. And a lot of times when they say they want to find common ground, they want to find common ground on their side, between on their worldview, and on the other worldviews too. Don't get me wrong, but based on their own perspective rather than on the bigger picture type of things, like, I don't know, like health and like ways, and like a good example of this is like the political correctness thing. There are some problems with it, and like, I understand its purpose. I think it's gone too far because it focuses on the minutiae too much. And what I mean by focuses on the minutiae, I mean focuses on the small details over like the bigger picture points that political correctness has. It's sort of made, it does make some sense. Not necessarily because of the small minutiae, but because of the bigger picture, like respect for peoples and all this stuff. And it was forgotten because people, the anti-SJWs, were focused on the smaller minutiae. Same with the SJWs. They focus on this smaller minutiae without realizing that the bigger picture stuff, like respect and all this stuff, is actually the more important part of all this. The small minutiae stuff can be like, and should be, overlooked to some extent. Not all of it, don't get me wrong. Like, but when it comes to the way it is handled, it's handled wrongly by most people because they're stuck in perspective lock. And their perspective is controlling their worldview, and they don't even realize this is happening because their worldview is like all they see, all around them. And the other side that they see, all they see from that is like the other side attacking them, which happens, which is further escalating this problem of perspective lock. This is why I try not to attack or criticize or things like that. Don't get me wrong, I've done it in the past, but I know better nowadays. I'm trying to understand more and criticize less, because criticism doesn't work. Explaining these things works. Like trying to show people that like a multi-perspectival way of doing things would actually get more done than focusing on this minutiae stuff that really has a limiting way of controlling not just other people but themselves, because they can't see that their own worldview is literally like distorting their own reality. That's all they a lot of these people focus on, because they don't see the multi-perspectival side of things. They don't understand that perspective lock has got them controlled. And it's not just them, it's got all these different political parties controlled. It's got the Conservative Party controlled, it's got the Democratic Party controlled, it's got all of these people who are like, and this doesn't involve, this doesn't have to do necessarily just with politics either. It has to do with all kinds of things, like little everyday things in everyday life. Everybody has, well, not everybody, but most people have, if not everybody has, some kind of perspective lock. and they don't see that they're in perspective lock. And this is what causes most of these struggles and sufferings and violence and warfare and conflict of the mental and emotional sorts. It's all caused by this perspective lock that is blocking them from, I don't want to say reality necessarily, but from seeing that there could be something that they're missing. And this is why I like Conversations with God so much. If you don't know what this is, you can check out Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, or any of his books are really good. But there was one part of it. There's one question. There's a couple questions that you can ask, but the important question is there something that I don't know that's something that could change everything? I mean, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's basically what it says. Is there something in the world that I don't know that if I did know, would it change everything or a lot of things? And this is what most people don't know. They don't know that their whole world is their whole mind reality is what I call it, because your mind creates its own sort of reality on top of the actual reality, as I've talked about before. So your mind creates this mind reality, and it overlays it over reality in such a way that you can't tell the difference. And because there's mostly thought there, there's no real gaps, so you can't see that. So that's why I told you to become aware of like an object, but without the thoughts surrounding the object, which can be difficult to do, very difficult, especially when it comes to an object that you like. And sometimes I think it's almost better to do it with like an object that's neutral to you, so that you can get this idea. But those objects have overlaid realities too. Like this object is something I don't care about because it doesn't give me what I want, or something like that. So these perspective blocks, they're controlling society right now. They're controlling how society is functioning. This is why I tell you to look at many perspectives, because if you don't look at many perspectives, you won't see that maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe there's something here there's something, the knowing of which might just change everything that I know, which is what I mean by recontextualization. This is like the big type of recontextualization that makes you go, what? Maybe, wow, this actually makes sense. This is what I'm trying to do here. This is why I'm making these videos that are different from the usual spirituality videos that I'm doing, because I'm trying to show you that your paradigm is literally like ruling your life, and you don't even realize it because you're controlled by ego that has an agenda. It has a personal agenda. That's what the problem is with politics. Is that politics is run by people with egos who have a personal agenda, and it's fine to have a personal agenda. I have a personal agenda, but my personal agenda is to find all the different perspectives and try and find something from each one of them that makes sense, and put them all together into like a grand theory of everything. Not necessarily everything, but a grand theory of whatever the subject is that I'm working on. Like the one I just did with healthcare. That is a very good example of a grand theory of everything. And it's not a grand theory of everything in the usual sense of this is going to solve every problem in the world. This isn't possible. This is not a realistic goal. This cannot be done. Not all at once, anyways. And even if you do manage to solve all of them, there's going to be some smaller, of a minutiae problem that's going to come up. There's always going to be something smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That's how society works. That's how it grows, and that's how you become bigger and better, and that's how humanity has evolved. And this comes back to a subject that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Something called spiral dynamics. And what is spiral dynamics? It's basically a model to show you exactly how society works, how your mind works, how group politics can work, and how you can overcome this in some way by seeing that these mind view realities that you hold are limiting. They're limiting to your not just your success, but not your success necessarily like in the material sense, but your success in growing as a person. Some call it like self-actualization, which is like finding enlightenment or something, but my version of enlightenment has mostly to do with becoming like the best possible version of yourself that you can, and just keep improving that over and over and over and over again, and not by destroying what you've made, but by improving little bits of that model. Just keep improving it until you find, well, you'll probably never stop improving it, but you'll find eventually that you get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm starting to develop like a grand, unified self that is like bigger and stronger, and not like stronger in like a power, like a usual sense of pure power, more power, domination sense, but like stronger as like a, like, as in like something happens to you and it doesn't affect you because you're stronger, and you know that this thing is not you. It's not going to affect you because you are the one affecting you. This is what I'm teaching you here. This is why it's extremely important to understand what recontextualization does, and why having a multi-perspectival view of the world is a good idea. And this is what I'm teaching you here because it's a very important thing. So what does this have to do with politics? Literally everything. This doesn't just have to do with politics. It has to do with economics, growth, personal growth, societal growth, like government growth, not just growth in like the usual sense of like GDP. That's another topic. That's another topic I'll go into later about the problems with economic growth and how people think that economic growth is a good thing, but eventually it's a bad thing, and it's already starting to be a bad thing. People are starting to see that it's not working to just completely grow and grow and grow and grow and grow the economy. But I'll get into that in a later video, maybe. But that's why I'm making all these wide, varied videos, to show you that your worldview isn't just controlled by these little things. It's controlled by these huge, almost like mammoth-like things, like social things and political things and economic things and things about military and all these things, beliefs that you hold about all these things, and these things they could possibly be holding you back. So please, for the sake of humanity everywhere, for the sake of your humanity and for the sake of humanity everywhere, please look at these beliefs and please tell me. A good question to ask about these beliefs is, what about these beliefs could be wrong? And what if there was something that was even better than these beliefs? What if it was something that was so magnificent that you wouldn't even be able to comprehend it unless you did what I said about multi-perspectival diving into this and creating this multi-perspectival grand theory of something. Because our problem as humans is a lack of imagination. And what I mean by this is not the usual sense of the imagination where you're creating images in your head, and you're imagining like a scenario. What I mean by a lack of imagination in this particular case is that we have this idea of life that it's always been in our minds, and we think this way always because it's all, like I said, it's always been in our minds. It's what our minds is like. We have this like ordinary like view of things, and well, not all of us. Like I'm trying to get past that. I am getting past that. So this is what I'm teaching you. But most people seem to have, well, maybe not even most people, but a lot of people seem to have this ordinary view of life without realizing that this view could be much, much wider than they could even imagine right now. So, just for a good context, please watch my video how to really change the healthcare system, or whatever it was, something like that. How to really make changes to the healthcare system, or something like that, like the value of multi-perspectival thinking. Videos like that I've done on this channel, like anything on this channel, will expand your worldview a little bit by making you see the stuff, especially if you're like open to it. If you're not open to it, it may take you like a year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe not even like until the end of your life. You won't see this, but if you're more open-minded, you'll see this. Maybe on a later video I'll try and figure out a way to show you how to become more open-minded, but a lot of it has to do with understanding that maybe our beliefs aren't the best beliefs in the world. Maybe we can change them and make them better. And by the way, this is not a judgment. I'm not saying that your beliefs are wrong because they're not the best. I'm just saying that your beliefs could be so magnanimously improved in such a grand way that you wouldn't be able to hold it in your reality right now, because a lot of these beliefs are contextualizing your reality right now. They're making your reality less grand than it could be. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is to show you how to make it more grand and make it more maybe more convoluted, but that convolution adds something to your life. It adds like a perspective and an understanding and a sort of wisdom to go forward. So, I know this video was very, very rambly and very long, but it's kind of a useful video to do. And so, like I said, this has to do with politics, because a lot of politics isn't like this. It's ordinary, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a necessary way to live, at least at first. But we've gone past that. We've entered a stage in our existence where we can literally like create anything that we've created multi-perspectively. Like if we created it in our heads, all that needs to be done is to show the world how to do it. And so, like I said, do a lot of reading. Do a lot of reading on something that you want to change, politics or government or something like that. Look at all kinds of different ideas. See what works in your mind. And eventually you'll come up with like a grand theory of something. And that's how visionaries are made. This is I'm basically making you a visionary, because we have a visionless society. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, right. Because they're so used to their own, because politicians and people who are in politics are so used to their own contextualized reality, they don't realize that this reality could be so much grander than they could even imagine. And not just that they get locked in these minutiae of ideas and stuff like that. This is why understanding of other people and their mind views and why they think the way they think is important. Because understanding these things kind of helps you kind of widen your own view. It makes you go, well, this makes them not evil at all. This makes their ideas not evil at all. They just have a worldview that's different than mine, and maybe this worldview has something in it that, maybe I could add to my own. So, I know this is very long and rambly, but it's an useful video to make. This is just another way to try and show you that contextualization or perspectivization controls everything. Controls your life, controls society, controls the world. And the reason why changes happen isn't because of people who stay in that perspective that we are in now. It's because people change that perspective. We wouldn't be where we are today if you're like in a Western country. We wouldn't be where we are today if people just kept the perspective that they had at the time. They changed that perspective. They became multi-perspectival. They understood what I understand. If not completely, they understood that maybe it would be better to spread out their ideas. Maybe like widen them in a way. So.
Now, new from Shield 0 Inlet, 300,000 leads, zone area 51, attachment.
So, like I said, this is a very important video to do because it explains how this works. So, and it shows you that not all the things you think of are actually true. Not even that they're not true, but that they're inaccurate. They're inadequate. A lot of the perspectives that people have are inadequate, and they're extremely simplified views that are held from like 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Well, not necessarily that far, but they have elements of those periods of time, even further than that. And those ideas aren't wrong, they're not evil, they're just ideas that helped us expand. Without those ideas, we wouldn't have gotten where we are now. We would have civilization. So we are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are the way we are because of these people who went above and beyond the usual belief systems and perspectives of their time to find a better belief system, or not even belief system, but find a better way of thinking and doing. This is what we've come to now. This is where we are now. This is a time for massive change, and it's already starting. People are already starting to wake up because this type of consciousness has been building for hundreds of years, thousands of years even. I would almost call it evolution. And evolution is not some scientific, well, it is that too. It's not just a scientific thing. Evolution is something that happens in the mind as well. Evolution is something that happens to the spirit, or not the spirit, but to the society, and to the politics, and to the mind of mankind as a whole, and as a unit, and as a and as an individual as well. This is how we've grown. This is how we learned. So, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I know it was very rambly, but it was important to try and explain it, and I wanted to try and explain it to myself as well, because I've been working through these ideas, and well, I just want to explain that because it's a very important thing to remember. Anyways, hold on a sec. Anyways, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe so that other people can get the same benefits as you did. This is a spiritual experience, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't tell me it's not. No, it's still recording. Cool. Okay, so this is the spiritual experience, and I'll see you on the next video.